I denied a cop the bathroom code at Subway.
So I was working at Subway a few years ago and a man came in with his wife and 2 children. I had all 4 sandwiches started when the man asked me for the code to the bathroom. The policy was you had to make a purchase to get the bathroom code, but by the way he was doing the potty dance, it was pretty apparent this guy needed to go. Obviously, either he or his wife will pay for the 4 sandwiches I've already started. The next day, my boss sits me down and lectures me about how the code is on the receipt for a reason. She watched the tape and see me give the man the code and tells me, I don't care who it's for. Whether it's your friend, family, whatever, you name it, you do not give it the code under any circumstances. Later on that night, I was working by myself when some guy in a trench coat and greasy long hair came in the side door and said, "Hey man, somebody got seriously F up outside." A long line of customers waited for me while I subtly grabbed the bread knife, sharp AF, and went around to check. It wasn't the best part of town, so you never know with people. Anyways, as Trenchcoat Man stated, someone was seriously F up outside. His face was all bloody and he was just a mess. I called 911 and went back to making sandwiches. Sometime later, a few cop cars and an ambulance showed up. They were doing their business outside and then one of the officers comes in and asks for the bathroom code. Like 6 hours earlier, my boss told me not to give it under any circumstances without a purchase. I laughed a little and told him what I told all the other customers, I'm sorry, you have to make a purchase first. You can get a cookie which is $0. And then it'll be on the receipt. He didn't realize the laugh was really at myself and how awkward of a situation he unknowingly put me in, nor did I have a chance to explain it before the laugh and the rejection of the bathroom code caused the cop to become straight up furious. He gives me 3 warnings to give him the code. Each time I tell him I'm not going to give it to him and the customers are on my side telling him I'm just doing my job. After his 3rd warning, he shook his head and muttered, "I can't believe you're interfering with an ongoing investigation," and he uses the walkie on his shoulder to get some information. About 5 minutes later, one of the cops handed me a phone. I answered and my manager said, "Are you effing serious?" Long story short, the cop got the bathroom code and a free bag of chips. My neighbors wanted to call a professional to mark their property line. My parents agreed.
This was a long time ago, but I remember it clearly. We moved into a community with tight space in between our house and our neighbors, and we didn't like them being able to see into our kitchen. We put up a bunch of plants, costing thousands, but my parents thought it would be worth it. A week later my parents awoke to the plants completely chopped down. My father was furious and marched down to our neighbor's house. He told my father the plants were on his property line, therefore he had total right to take them down. He warned that if anything were to go on his property again, he would report us to the authorities immediately. Later that day my father called the company that put in the plants, and with the warranty we could have them replanted next week for no charge. We made sure there was no way it was on our neighbor's property. However, a few days later we caught him chopping them down at 2 a.m. We called the police upon obstruction of property, and after a chat with my neighbor he decided to call a professional and mark his property line. My father agreed. A few days later I got home to find orange tape in my neighbor's yard. Apparently, his fence was 11 feet over our property line. We watched as he took down his fence, completely furious. Within the next month we were enjoying our new space and privacy in our backyard, and my neighbor ended up losing 1/4 of his backyard. My neighbor ended up having to pay almost $10,000 for the destruction of our property, and we got to plant our plants again. Want me to fuck up some girl's life? Hell nah.
Old story, but in 2007 I was involved in a traffic accident on the I-95-I-695 ramp in Baltimore. Traffic went from the speed limit, 55 miles per hour, to a dead stop around the curve of the exit in a space of 500 feet, and it had just started raining. I and my Honda Accord managed to stop literal inches from the person in front of me's bumper. I had enough time to have a sigh of relief before I was rear-ended so hard that the can of tea in my waist-level console cup holder wound up splattered all over the windshield. I get out of the car and the person who hit me is literally crying blood. She's driving a Saturn that is at least a decade old and the ancient airbag broke her nose and blacked both of her eyes. She's also crying for real, because this is her only transportation. I go fuck, grab an umbrella out of my now weirdly shaped backseat, and hold it over her while she sobs, explains her brakes had been locking up lately and she was literally on her way to the mechanics, and tries to text her boyfriend to pick her up. She's crying so hard that she drops her phone twice. And then a cop shows up. Baltimore cops are bastards, so he writes this girl a ticket about failure to control speed to avoid an accident, and reckless endangerment and half a dozen other bullshit things to where the ticket would literally cost more than a new car and she might get her license revoked and or jail time. She's hysterical. I talk to her, reassure her it's not her fault, and manage to swap insurance info. Fast forward 2 months. I had mild whiplash, but I'm healed up and mostly good regarding the accident. Have a new car and everything. I get a notice in the mail that I am requested to be a witness for this poor girl's trial for her ticket, don't have to show, but it'd be nice. Fuck if I'm gonna let that cop roast her, I was asked, to I'm taking a day off work to show up. I turn up in court dressed in my civil servant best, was working for the state government at the time, so however stage you imagine, multiply it by 3, and even toss on some makeup to impress the judge. I wait 3 hours for her hearing, because hell if I'm gonna accidentally be late. The cop goes first, making up a bunch of bullshit about how recklessly she was driving to have hit me in an accident he was probably 10 miles away from witnessing from his response time. Then the judge calls me, and I stand up. Cop looks this weird combo of surprised Pikachu.jpg and pissed, like he didn't expect me to show. Poor girl was already crying and starts crying more. So I get to the stand, get sworn in, and tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So I day that we were going exactly the speed limit, I know, because I checked my speedometer in surprise that there wasn't more traffic. That she was following a proper distance behind me, because I'd checked my rear view mirror and she was a ways off. That it had just started raining after a dry week, so the road was greasy as fuck and I knew that because I'd almost slid into the car in front of me, only saved by my car's ABS. That her wheels had locked because I'd heard the screech and seen the skid marks, and that she definitely wasn't at fault because she was on her way to get her car's old ass ABS fixed. And I mentioned that the cop didn't show up until 20 minutes later. I know this sounds like it and everyone clapped. Moment, but the judge did thank me for doing my civic duty and turning up. And I got a quick hug from the poor girl after the judge dismissed her charges. Anyway, Baltimore cops are bastards and if you can turn up in court to fight a traffic ticket, even someone else's, you should do so. What do you mean I can't drive my car?
I've been a mechanic my entire working life so far, and this is one of my favorite experiences. I had a customer come in complaining about a vibration. I put the vehicle on the lift and checked the front end. I found a nearly broken tie rod and a faulty rack and pinion. So basically the passenger side front wheel was not fully secured to the steering system, and would soon break and cause the wheel to be completely disconnected from the steering. I told the customer how much the repair would be and told her it was unsafe to drive. She asked me to put it back together so she could leave. I told her that I could not do that because if it broke after I let her leave, I could be held liable. She started yelling and screaming about calling the cops and suing me and how her cousin's brother knows a guy who's related to the chief of police and I'll be arrested. She calls the police and they come out. I show the officers the vehicle and they understood the safety concern. They told me to just put the car down and let her leave. I did and even made her sign a statement declining crucial safety repairs. She left with the most "ha-ha, I told you so" smug grin on her face. Until she left the property, got pulled over and her car impounded. They also gave her a ticket for reckless driving. I was so happy seeing her car get towed.